Well, just watched the end of the Coke Zero Sugar 400, and well, if there's one way to get your first career win, that certainly does it. Gets him into the playoffs, and he finally has that ticked off his box. Congratulations, William Byron, on a job well done. And we're going to be getting into all that and taking a look at the playoffs for the 2020 season, and they are not going to be including Jimmie Johnson. What a crazy fucking race this was. And we're going to be getting into all of that, so let's do it. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of The Fuel, where today we're going to be covering the season finale for the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series season, the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at the Daytona International Speedway. Well, if they move this race to this slot to up the drama, well, they certainly, I think, succeeded in that regard, because this race was all over the place. You had, passing left and right for the lead. You had some boring as hell spots where everybody was just getting a giant fucking choo-choo train, which seems to be a real problem nowadays with this goddamn package at the super speedways. But when it was on, and it was a war. And so much of a war, in fact, that we saw two big accidents and a third one on the final restart. But to NASCAR's credit, they did at least let them race back to the line, which I think was the right thing to do. Let the race play out. And pretty interesting playoff field, I gotta say, for this year's playoff. And it's pretty clear who the clear-cut favorites are, and to me it's pretty obvious who I really don't. There's some that I really don't think are going to be contenders, but we're going to be getting into all that. But first I want to talk about Mr. William Byron. Spoiler alert, he is the guy who won today's race. Of course, I'm recording this at the moment as they still gotta go through tech inspection and all that shit, and make sure that they get through tech inspection, because they could be DQ'd, and then all of a sudden Jimmy is back in the playoffs. So there's that to consider as well. But needless to say, I'm not going to do the results portion of this video as I'm recording it right now. Obviously, you're going to see it all back to back to back as it's edited, and all rendered and shit. But from my perspective, I'm doing this right now as the broadcast is still going on. They're doing the post-race shit. I figured I wanted to get a little bit of a head start, considering, that tomorrow is the second IndyCar race, and I kind of wanted to take a gander at that. But William Byron, I mean, I understand that this guy is still a pretty young guy. I think he's barely 20 or 21. But a lot of people basically pegged him as a budding and up and coming superstar, since he'd been tearing up the Truck Series and then the Xfinity Series. But when you go 3 seasons without a win in the 24 car, it really starts to get people to ask a lot of questions like, why is this guy, not living up to the expectations that have been set for him, especially now since he's got Chad Knaus as his crew chief. And I'm pretty sure he had been feeling that pressure, especially considering that, there was a possibility that he was going to get knocked out of the playoff, on all this different shit. But I mean, you gotta give it to him. You gotta give it credit where credit is due. even if you're not a fan of William Byron, for him to basically just, considering that all the pressure that he was put under, especially with this playoff format, and for him to basically block all that out, and for him to fight through this field and take the win is pretty crazy. And he had some big challenges on that last lap. I mean, Truex, he had a run with Hamlin, but I'll tell you this much: William Byron better be giving Chase Elliott some fucking Christmas presents this year for that assist, because Elliott managed to get up behind him and basically pushed Byron by Truex and Hamlin to help him secure his maiden victory. And I realize I am jumping ahead a little bit, but that is something I kind of wanted to talk about as far as William Byron is concerned, because I think we've all been expecting him to break out at some point, but we just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. I mean, we've seen flashes of brilliance from him, but it just never seemed like he could put it all together. And tonight, he put it all together when it fucking mattered the most. You know what I mean? That possibility of him not making the playoff, and all those doubts about him, maybe even returning to the 24 next year, because, but he can finally say that he got his first checkered flag, and it's a hell of a place to get your first checkered flag at Daytona. So hopefully there will be many more in his future, as he now looks towards the playoff and begins his quest for a championship, which I don't think he's going to win. I mean, there's really only 4 guys who I think are going to be bona fide playoff contenders, true playoff contenders based on their performances this year. And those 4 are obviously Kevin Harvick, who won the regular season title going away and currently has 7 wins. And of course there's Denny Hamlin, who has 6 wins. Was pretty damn close to getting number 7 tonight, which would have irritated the shit out of me, because it's like, come on, enough of the same old shit. There's Martin Truex Jr., who I would place at number 3, because even though he has just the 1 win, I mean, he has been riding a streak of top 5 finishes, and it's just been absolutely incredible. I think tonight he finished in 4th, and it was his, I think, 8th consecutive top 5 finish. I mean, that's pretty fucking impressive. I mean, that 19 team is peaking at the right time, right as they're going into the playoff. And then I think the 4th guy will be Brad Keselowski. He has the 3 wins, and he does have experience winning a championship. In fact, 3 of the 4 guys that I just mentioned have won championships. The only one who hasn't is Denny Hamlin. And, we're all kind of wondering, when is he going to win a championship? You know what I mean? And this year might be one of his best years, even though he's got to go through Harvick, I think, to get the job done. But be that as it may, I mean, he's shown that he can hang with Harvick. I mean, there's been a couple times this year where he's managed to actually beat Harvick for victories at certain points this year. So the possibility is definitely there, I will say. But obviously there's still a lot to unpack from all this, and looking at who the playoff guys are going to be, heading into this year's playoff. So who were the 16, the lucky 16 to get in? Okay, so we have Austin Dillon, you have Cole Custer, Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Clint Bowyer, William Byron, who obviously got in with his win, Matt DiBenedetto, who got in by the skin of his ass hairs, and then you have, of course, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. Those are your 16 drivers that are going to be competing in this year's NASCAR playoffs. So, I mean, but as I've said before, it really all comes down to two drivers. It's the Harvick-Hamlin show. It has been pretty much since, the end of the COVID break, I mean, Logano was pretty good early on, winning 2 of the first 4 races, but that was before the whole COVID situation. And then NASCAR had to take the next 2.5 months off due to the whole COVID-19 stuff. And ever since they've come back, it's been Harvick-Hamlin, 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 Harvick-Hamlin. Which is really taking some of the piss out of this NASCAR season, to say the least. But we do have, sometimes there is surprises that just come out of nowhere. And to my knowledge, we have 3 first-time winners this year. We had Cole Custer at Kentucky. Cole Custer at Kentucky. Shit. We had William Byron tonight. And who else was it? Fuck. I'm pretty sure there was another first-time winner in there somewhere. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit tired, so I'm trying to fucking remember who the other first-time winner was. God damn it. Unless I'm fucking crazy. Maybe it was just 2 this year. Because I think the other winner I was thinking of was the crazy win by Austin Dillon at Texas. So yeah, I'm thinking there's only I thought there was 3 at first, but now that I think about it, I think there's only 2 that we've had this year as far as first time winners, which was Cole Custer and then William Byron. Let me double check my notes here real quick, just to be absolutely positively certain. Ring driver. Sir. So yeah, we've only had 2 different winners. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the list just looks like, it's Harvick-Hamlin, Harvick-Hamlin. They've been going back and forth a little bit. But yeah, it would definitely cost Jimmy Johnson a spot in the playoffs this year for sure. We could basically point to 2 occasions. There was, of course, the disqualification at the Coca-Cola 600, which cost him a shit ton of points. Because, remember, serves me correctly, he finished 3rd in that race, I believe. I believe he finished 3rd. Or he finished... I'm trying to remember where he finished. I wonder if it can tell me here. Let me see here. He crossed the line 2nd, actually, but failed post-race inspection. I know he finished high up in the standings at some point, but he actually finished runner-up. But then he got disqualified, and that was a big blow. I mean, he scored a shit ton of points there, and then of course when he had the positive COVID test before Indianapolis, that cost him a bunch of points as well. And as a result of all that, that just cost him pretty much his trip to the championship, or the trip to the playoff, I should say, because William Byron got the victory at Daytona, of course pending post-race inspection, of course, and Matt DiBenedetto managed to get the final slot on points. So I mean, this race had some craziness. You had Bubba Wallace up there challenging for the win at one point, Tyler Reddick, before he decided to go all Satima or whatever the fuck you call it, He was up there. Kyle Busch was up there contending for the win, but he got taken out late. So much to unpack from this fucking race, man. I mean, it's not very often, you know, that... I mean, last year I think was... wasn't Indianapolis the season finale? Last year? And there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about from that race. I mean, they were talking about, you know, how they were all focused on the goddamn final spot in the playoff. Like, oh my god, you know, who's going to make it in? It's just like, dude, come on. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? At least this time around, while they did, you know, mention it quite a bit as well, for the most part, they kept the focus on the drivers who were competing for the race win. Especially considering that one of those was William Byron and he ended up winning the race. So there's that. So I apologize if this is kind of going all over the place right now, but there's just so much to unpack from this race. It's not even funny. You know, from, you know, William Byron getting his first career win in crazy ass circumstances, you know, to Jimmy Johnson not being able to make it into the playoff in his final season. You got guys like Matt DiBenedetto making it into the playoff for the first time in his career. You got guys like, you know, Alex Bowman, who managed to make it in very early in the season but hasn't really shown up since. Clint Boyer managed to make it in on points. You had the Busch brothers who made it in on points, which is, I mean, you say that and it just doesn't sound right, especially from Kyle Busch's point of view. I mean, I think this has been one of the longest winless droughts of his career. This is certainly the latest he's gone without a win. 26 races in and he hasn't won a race, which is just fucking crazy to me. Then you have Eric Almirola, who was the highest finisher of those who got in on points. But you want to talk about a guy who's just red hot right now in terms of finishing well. It's definitely Martin Truex Jr. I mean, holy shit. I mean, I look at his finishes starting at Kansas, and all I see is third, second. And then, of course, here tonight at Daytona, I finished fourth. So, 8 straight top 5 finishes. I mean, that's just insane. Even though none of those are wins, I mean, he's a contender. So, just think of all of those were wins. Holy shit. And then you have Brad Keselowski, who's been a little bit inconsistent. Denny Hamlin, who was a contender tonight. Harvick got caught up in a wreck late. I think that's going to result in his worst finish of the year. No, he finished 26th at Homestead. And where do they have him finishing in this race? 20th. So no, this won't be his worst finish of the season. I don't think it was the way he wanted to end the regular season, but I mean, he's got so many freaking bonus points right now, it's not even funny. You know, of course, he also gets the 15 playoff points for winning the regular season title, so... And then you look at Denny Hamlin, who's also got a boatload of bonus points. I mean, it's all but assured for both of those guys to make it to the championship 4. Of course, there's always a possibility that, you know, some crazy shit could happen. But I mean, with this new, you know, with this playoff point system, if you have a shit ton of playoff points, like a Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin do, I mean, chances are you're going to make it into the championship 4. I mean, look at what Martin Truex did in 2017. Scored a shit ton of playoff points, and he basically had an easy ride all the way into the championship 4. Look at what Kyle Busch did last year. Scored a shit ton of playoff points. Easy path right into the championship 4, even though he didn't really have the best playoff run, I'll tell you that much. But when they got to Homestead, he got the win when it counted. And now you look at Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, who have a shit ton of playoff points. And I'll be very surprised if one of those two does not make it into the championship 4. What the fuck was that? That was weird. Thought I heard something bang or some shit. Probably one of the cats jumping onto my fucking trash can. But yeah, a shit ton to unpack here. But before we get into officially the review, this might be a little weird for those of you who are watching, but this, of course, this is probably going to be recorded out of order, but you know, it is what it is. But before we get into the official review for this race, let's go ahead and get into the news of the week. Alright, news of the week is going to be really brief because there isn't a whole lot to report other than the Indianapolis 500 results. I tell you what, that race last week, it was something else. But a big talking point from that race was just the sheer amount of brutal accidents. Especially that one from Spencer Pigot. Oh my God. I can only imagine what would have happened if those tire bearers were not at the end of that pit wall. Or the attenuator, as I guess they're calling it. But no matter what you fucking call it, I mean, that was a brutal ass hit. And it's a good, he actually got out of the car and laid down on the ground because, you know, he hit so damn hard. But, I mean, he was checked and released from the local hospital, and thankfully he was okay. But lost in all this was Takuma Sato, winning his second Indianapolis 500 and outrunning the heavy favorite Scott Dixon, who led 111 of the race's 200 laps, but at the end of the day just couldn't find a way back around Sato, who ends up taking his second Indianapolis 500. The crazy thing is, Takuma Sato doesn't even have that many IndyCar victories. I think this is only like his 5th or 6th. But I tell you what, in the big events, he shows up because he has a win in the Long Beach Grand Prix, and now he has 2 wins in the Indianapolis 500. And he's now only one of a handful of drivers who have won the Indy 500 more than once. You know, and he's doing this in his mid-40s. Like, unreal. I guess him and Dixon had another close battle in the first race at Gateway, which we'll cover next week. Since the second race takes place, is going to be taking place later today as I'm recording this. But top 10 results from the Indianapolis 500: Takuma Sato with the win, led 27 laps. Scott Dixon, of course, comes home second. Graham Rahal rounds out the podium. Santino Ferrucci and Joseph Newgarden round up the top 5. Pato O'Ward, and then James Hinchcliffe, Colton Herta, Jack Harvey, and Ryan Hunter-Reay. And I'll have the full points and results for IndyCar at the end of the Gateway when Gateway is completed later on today, and we'll have that next week for you, since they don't have any other races scheduled until October at the moment, although they're going to try to get the 2 Mid-Ohio races that had to be postponed done in September. So I have to wait and see what happens there. So that's it for news of the week. So let's go ahead and get into this race review. I seriously need to get a fucking fly trap, because there are freaking flies in here. I mean, I've been trying to spray them with Raid, but that hasn't been really doing any good. So I need to get some fucking fly traps, because I'm tired of these assholes buzzing all around me. So let's go ahead and get into the 2020 Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. 160 laps, 400 miles. Stages broke down like this. Stages 1 and 2 were 50 laps, with stage 3 being 60 laps. Weather was a bit of a concern, but it never came into play. But the halfway point was still 80 laps, just so you know. So stage number 1, Harvick started from the pole, but Truex managed to get a good push and led lap 1, but Harvick got a great push himself on the outside, and we had our first pure lead change on lap 2. Then we have Hendrick teammates Byron and Bowman on the outside trying to take the lead away, and we had a bit of a back and forth battle between Byron and Harvick for a couple laps. So we had our second, third, and fourth pure lead changes in 3 consecutive laps on laps 6, 7, and 8. I was like, damn, we're having a good back and forth between Byron and Harvick. Then Harvick has to bail out because his grill started to become packed with debris, like paper and shit. And his engine actually started overheating, so he actually had to bail out, get up behind. He actually got up behind Ryan Newman and blew the paper out of the grill. So, and you could even see it on the TV and shit like that, which was pretty cool. And then we had a choo-choo train starting to form up on the outside, which was pretty prevalent in this race, unfortunately, in a couple points. Then we had our first caution on lap 21, which was a competition caution. Everyone came in mostly for fuel. William Byron led on the restart. Then we had a situation where we had Hendrick cars on the high side and Joe Gibbs Racing cars on the inside. So we had our 5th pure lead change when Eric Jones took the lead on lap 29, and then the Hendrick cars and JGR cars kind of switched lanes. So you had the JGR cars now on the inside and the Hendrick cars on the outside lane, which helped William Byron get to the lead on lap 34 for our 6th pure lead change of the day. And then the Penske cars made their presence known, in particular Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, with Logano getting pushed to the lead by Blaney for a 7th pure lead change on lap 36. And then another freight train forms near the end of this stage. Reddick jumps to the inside and has the Hendrick cars behind him and challenges Logano for the lead, but is unable to do so. Then on the last lap of the stage, everybody starts, kind of making some crazy moves. But Logano manages to hold Jones and Reddick at bay to win stage number 1. So we had 7 pure lead changes in the first stage alone. So it's like, yeah, we're off to a good start. Everyone comes in for service. Christopher Bell takes just 2 tires and wins the race off pit road. So now we get to stage 2, which was 50 laps as well. This stage was boring as shit. Christopher Bell leads the start of stage 2. Hamlin had to go to the rear of the field for not entering pit road single file under the stage break, which I guess is a thing. Johnson pushes Jones out to the lead on the restart, and they already have a choo-choo train formed on the outside lane. Whoop-de-fucking-do. And they also said that Boyer managed to clinch a playoff spot on points, which, he was 57 to the good. So, I mean, any amount of pointage. So after stage 1, if he had a plus 50, then he would have been good, and apparently he was. So there's that. Green flag pit stops begin en masse on lap 66, mainly 2 tire stops and all that good stuff. Kyle Busch takes the lead on the exchange of pit stops, but is then challenged by Daniel Suarez on the outside. And Suarez actually takes the lead for a bit on lap 96 for our 8th pure lead change of the day. The top 23 cars have yet to pit with 16 laps to go in stage 2. And there was a line of cars being led by Jimmy Johnson that were just coming right towards the front in a hurry. And with Daniel Suarez leading, they were actually a half a second slower per lap. So it's like, man, this stage has been the fuel-saving stage for the most part. Several cars come in for fuel on lap 89. Logano manages to get by Suarez for the race lead for a 9th pure lead change on lap 92. Then Johnson's group catches the leaders, and Johnson himself tries to split the middle. Kyle Busch has to pit for fuel, and much like stage 1, Logano managed to hold everyone at bay once again to win stage number 2. Stage 2 sucked. I mean, there wasn't as much action as there was in stage 1. And then we come to stage 3, and oh boy, did this get crazy. So Logano leads the start of stage 3. Truex gets pushed in front of Logano to take the lead on the restart. And the field actually got all strung out a little bit at the beginning of this stage. But then we started getting some 3-wide action near the front. Logano manages to slingshot past Truex for the lead in turn 3. That was our 10th pure lead change of the day on lap 112. But then Truex comes back with help from Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson to retake the lead. So we have our 11th pure lead change on lap 113. And then Johnson jumps up to the outside to try to make a run at the lead, but is unable to do so. And Kyle Busch takes advantage and takes over the lead from his teammate on lap 119 for a 12th pure lead change of the day. And then Johnson gets hung out by Logano and gets drop kicked to the back of the pack. And there were also some slow cars that were just kind of in the way, and it's just like, get the fuck out of the way, man. You're nothing but moving chicanes. I think it was the Rick Ware cars that were kind of slow as hell. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, man. So pit stops begin en masse on lap 126, mainly 2 tires and fuel like before. Kyle Busch cycles back with the lead with 28 laps to go after his pit stops. Stenhouse comes up on the inside to try to challenge for the lead, but then we get single file once again at the front. And And then we have our second caution on lap 143 when James Davison apparently backed it into the wall. He flatted all of his tires, so there's that. Some cars come in for service. So Kyle Busch leads on the restart and starts getting hectic behind the leaders. Kurt gets under his brother to challenge for the race lead. So we have our 13th pure lead change on lap 152. But then we have our third caution on that same lap, as they begin that same lap. The big one erupts when Tyler Reddick has a big run to the inside and takes over the lead in turn 3. But then he tries to block Kyle Busch in the high line, and he basically puts Kyle into the wall. And this causes Erik Jones to check up and try to evade his teammate, but ends up spinning out, and that basically takes most of the field into the wall. Jones tries to evade, loses it. Like I said, they had to throw a red flag to clean up the mess. Kurt Busch, he got spun into his brother on the outside. Then Tyler Reddick had a little bit of damage from it. Kyle Busch, of course. Ryan Newman was involved. Truex was involved a little bit, but he only sustained minor damage. Of course, Erik Jones was heavily involved, so his shot at the playoff was done and dusted. Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse, Michael McDowell, and Ryan Preece, who took another pretty vicious hit. So it took about 10 minutes to clean up the mess. So Hamlin leads on the restart with 5 laps to go. Reddick gets to the lead, but Hamlin fights back on the high side. We had 4 wide near the front of the field. We had 2 more pure lead changes, with Denny Hamlin taking the lead on lap 157. Logano took the lead again on lap 158, but then hell broke loose once again with 2 laps to go. The 4th and final caution of the day, when the second big one occurs while fighting for the lead. So looking at this, it looked like Hamlin got into Logano's right rear quarter panel or right rear bumper and actually turned him into Bubba Wallace. But after looking closely at the footage, because they showed several different camera angles, it actually looked like Hamlin was pushed into the 22 by Matt Kenseth in the 42, who had a big run from behind, and actually he had gotten to the 11's rear bumper and was pushing on him, which I think pushed the 11 into the 22. So I don't think Hamlin meant to do that. I mean, but when you have someone basically jacking you up from behind, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot that Hamlin could do there. At least that's what I saw from the replays that I saw. And that sent the 22 into Bubba Wallace, who was on the outside. And this inevitably cut down the 22's right rear tire, which spun him out. And the melee was on. And unfortunately, Jimmy Johnson was also heavily involved. When Kenseth's car spun out, he was on the high line, and Kenseth's car came up and basically got into him. So Johnson's shot at the playoff basically comes to an end with this wreck. And really, I mean, what cost him a spot in the playoff was that damn positive COVID test and that disqualification in the Coke 600. That really sucks. So they have to have another red flag to clean up the mess and get ready for the green-white checkered. There were more cars involved in this one than there was in the first one. Involved in this wreck was Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, which knocked him out of the race, Cole Custer, Matt DiBenedetto. He only got minor damage though. Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, Jimmy Johnson, and Bubba Wallace. So they got everything cleaned up, and we had Hamlin leading the green-white checkered on the restart. And it's like, if Hamlin wins this race, dude, it's like there's no hope anymore for the rest of the season, because it's like Daytona and Talladega is supposed to be the most random shit, you know, in the series, and we're on the verge of having the same old shit yet again. Thankfully, that was not the case. Byron was pushed out to the lead, with Christopher Bell right behind him. Inevitably, he only had minor damage. Boyer actually got loose and hit the wall, and then they start wrecking on the backstretch. Harvick had damage, and there were several others. Ty Dillon had heavy damage in that wreck, but they let them race back to the line. And at one point, Martin Truex Jr. was actually alongside Byron for the lead down the backstretch. So it's like, holy shit, you know. But then Chase Elliott comes up behind Byron and gives him a good push through turns 3 and 4, which puts him out in front. And Elliott, I guess, was more than happy to follow his teammate to the win, as William Byron finally gets his maiden NASCAR Cup Series victory at Daytona. Couple crazy statistics from this that a couple people, I guess, looked up. William Byron is only the second driver to win in the Cup Series driving car number 24. That's right, all 91 prior victories from drivers who have won in the 24 car have all been Jeff Gordon. That's crazy to think about. So William Byron is just the second driver to ever win using the number 24, because Chase Elliott didn't win a race while driving number 24. All of his wins have come in number 9. And here's the other crazy stat. Jeff Gordon was 22 years old and 25 days when he won his first victory in the Coca-Cola 600. William Byron is 22 years and 1 day old when he won the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. The difference in age between the two when they got their first win, 24 days. You can make this shit up if you tried. I mean, I don't know what it is about motorsports and, you know, having these connections to numbers and all this other shit, but it's just insane how often it occurs, especially in what you think would be the most random ass circumstances, but that turns out to not be the case. It's pretty crazy. And that was your Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona, and the playoff field has been set. But before we get to the results, of course, I'm going to give you the lead change count and my star of the race and reject of the race. So, lead change count. We had 34 overall lead changes in this race. Pretty good number. And we also had 15 pure lead changes. Certainly not Talladega-esque numbers, but for Daytona, that's still pretty good. I think 15 pure lead changes is the second most we've had this year, behind, of course, the first Talladega race. So overall, it was still pretty good, really competitive, and it had a really good battle at the end with Truex and Byron trying to get the win. So, and of course, we have a first-time winner. So, tell you what, William Byron, he had that pressure on, and he was cool under pressure. I'll tell you that much, and he got the job done. So 34 overall lead changes with 15 pure lead changes. That's pretty good. Star of the race. I mean, typically, you know, the last couple weeks I've been giving it to guys that have not been the dominant winner because of performances that I thought were more impressive. But I mean, this week you won't find any such thing. I mean, there's only one guy I could give this to, and that is William Byron. Because it's not just the fact that he got his maiden Cup Series victory, but when you consider the fact that, you know, there were points where he looked like he was going to be out of the playoff, and the pressure was on to hold his teammate Jimmy Johnson at bay to try to make it into the playoff. And for him to, you know, just ignore all that pressure and maintain his cool and not only make it to the front of the field, but end up winning the race to get him into the playoff via the win. You know, I thought that was impressive for someone his age, a young guy like him, to be able to, you know, go in and, you know, with all the pressure on him to win that race, I thought was extremely, extremely impressive. So, thumbs up to William Byron on a job well done. As for my reject of the race, as for the usual, it's a pretty obvious one. Tyler Reddick this week was my reject of the race. I mean, I couldn't appreciate the fact that he was going for the lead, you know, and he was trying to, you know, I mean, he was trying to go up to keep Kyle Busch behind him because, you know, he didn't really have any help on the inside once he got pushed out there. But at the end of the day, he still caused a massive accident, which took out a lot of good cars. You know, and even though, I mean, to his credit though, he did apologize afterwards and he took responsibility for it. So I will give him credit for that. But I mean, in comparison to everything else, I mean, I have no choice. I mean, I have no choice but to give it to him because, I mean, you know, he should know better. You know, being a two-time Xfinity champion. I mean, I understand he was going for the win, but I mean, you know, he still caused a massive accident. So there you go. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the race results and take a look at the playoff grid. Alright, so race results for the Coke Zero Sugar 400. William Byron, of course, with the win. Led 24 laps. Chase Elliott pushing him to the win. And second, yeah, the JGR cars of Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. coming home third and fourth. How about Bubba Wallace with the top 5 run? Good run for him. Then you had Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Brendan Gaughan in the 62 car comes home with a top 10 finish. And he was one of the guys who tested positive for COVID earlier this year. And comes back and gets a top 10 at Daytona. Chris Buescher with a top 10 of his own, and Brad Keselowski rounds out the top 10. So, with all that out of the way, here is your playoff grid for the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. It looks kind of like this. The round of 16 sees Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Austin Dillon, Cole Custer. Those are your race winners. And then you have Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, and Matt DiBenedetto. So it looks like we have 3 Stewart-Haas cars, the Wood Brothers car, a Chip Ganassi car, 3 JGR cars, a Richard Childress Racing car. Actually, we have 4. All 4 Stewart-Haas cars made it in. Yeah, Harvick, Custer, Almirola, and Bowyer all made it in for Stewart-Haas. That's pretty impressive. And we have 3 Hendrick cars, Byron, Bowman, and Elliott. 3 JGR cars, like I said. All 3 Penske cars made it in as well. So here's how the points look to begin the round of 16. Of course, everyone starts with 2,000, and then they have their playoff points added in. So as we head into the first race of the playoff, which will be the Southern 500 at Darlington, and Darlington will make history, becoming the first track to have 3 points-paying races in the same year. Harvick starts out with 57 playoff points, so he has 2,057 to start, so he has a 10-point edge on Denny Hamlin. Brad Keselowski in third, Joey Logano in fourth, Chase Elliott fifth, Martin Truex Jr. in sixth. Then you have Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, William Byron, and of course who got the win at Daytona, Austin Dillon, and Cole Custer. Those are the guys who won this season. And then you have Eric Almirola in the final spot to make it into the round of 12. And then below that, you have Clint Bowyer, defending champion Kyle Busch, who earned just 3 extra points this year, Kurt Busch, and Matt DiBenedetto. That's your round of 16 field. Now, who do I think is going to be the first 4 out? I mean, based on how they've been running the last couple weeks, I would say Matt DiBenedetto will be one. Clint Bowyer will be one. Cole Custer, even though he had the win at Kentucky, he hasn't really been performing all that well. And probably Alex Bowman, because he hadn't really been performing all that well leading up to Daytona as well. I think those will be the first 4 out. But really, it's all about Harvick and Hamlin at this point. So I think it'll be those 2 fighting it out for the championship. And then you have Keselowski and Truex also in that fight in the championship 4. So that's how I look at it. We'll have to wait and see what happens though. But as for my final rating for the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona, honestly, overall this was a pretty good race. It definitely got messy at the end, like really messy. But this was super competitive. Stage 2 was still boring as shit though. But stages 1 and 3 were pretty good. Had a good battle at the end for the win between Truex and Byron, and we had a first-time winner. So, very positive Daytona race, I think. Super competitive, like I said, and it was fairly enjoyable for the most part. Definitely a lot better than what we had the last couple weeks. So my final rating for the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona, I'll give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think that's a good rating for this race, and hopefully with the Southern 500 next week, we'll see some good racing. I mean, the first two Darlington races were actually pretty good, especially that second one on the Wednesday, the 500-kilometer race. That was actually a really good race. So hopefully we'll see more of the same next Sunday for Labor Day weekend. But that is going to do it for today's edition of The Fuel. Next week we begin the playoff run. These godforsaken playoffs, but it is what it is. So, thank you very much for watching, and until next week when we begin the playoff officially, this is the PackerMan signing out. See you later.
You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.